ready.
Are we all ready?
All ready.
All right. Then, good evening. I'd like to call to order the April 13th, 2020 Lake Washington School Board meeting. So please let the record reflect that all board members are present and participating remotely. Sorry, I'm getting a little feedback in here. All meeting participants will also be joining this meeting remotely in alignment with current proclamation issued by Governor Inslee. The board meeting is live streamed and viewable on the district website. If you are unable to live stream, the meeting viewers can call 425-936-2805 or 425-936-2809, conference ID 471683, to listen to the meeting. Regular board meetings will continue to be live streamed on the Lake Washington School District website and posted for viewing within 2 days, as long as our district staff are available to support these basic functions of our board meetings. Please note that there will be no in-person public comment to ensure social distancing. All public comments should be submitted in writing to Diane Jenkins by 1 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. These same procedures will be used for all of our board meetings scheduled in April. So, to begin our meeting, I'd first like to just approve the agenda. So I will now entertain a motion to approve the April 13th agenda.
So moved.
Yeah, second.
Been moved by Director Carlson and moved by Director Stewart and seconded by Director Carlson that we approve the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Aye. Hearing none, motion carries. So our next item is public comments. So we do have one public comment this evening that was sent. I have forwarded the email to all the board members, so you also have this in writing. The public comment was provided to us by A.J. Ritter, who lives out in Woodinville, and their email said, could the board push the district staff to speed up the delivery of the remote online curriculum? I don't feel that the school district staff feel any sense of urgency in the current situation. Using last week's spring break as an excuse, given the previous weeks not being in class, is too much. When can we expect to see some traction? I will say that after looking over the district website, I am impressed at the amount of meals the district is still delivering. I am glad those who need meals are getting them. I just wish the educational component of the district was as committed to their tasks. And that is the public comment we have for this evening. I know we'll have some information about that, and just as a reminder, we do have pilot programming right now going on with the educational component, as well as rolling out to all on April 20th on Monday. So hopefully tonight we'll provide some additional information as well as our website, and there has been good work with food. So with that, we will move to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. So I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Sage and seconded by Director Carlson to approve the consent agenda. Dr. Stavum, if you could poll the board.
Director LaLiberty.
She's back.
Oops. Director LaLiberty.
Yes.
Director Sage.
Yes.
Director Carlson.
Yes.
Director Stewart.
Yes.
President Bleasner.
Yes. Okay, and with that, there are no items on the non-consent agenda this evening, so we will now move on to the superintendent report. So Dr. Stavum.
Yes, and I'm going to ask everybody to make sure that your mics are muted until it's your turn to speak, because we're having just a little bit of feedback here in the boardroom, trying to get our volume up enough for everybody to hear it coming through my screen. And we can tell the season is changing because the sunlight is right squarely on the podium tonight. Maybe that's a good sign. We have a lot going on, as you know, coming off of spring break. This is the time now for the next week that we're really ramping up to get to kind of full instruction on the 20th. And so while this seemed a long ways away, once we're at this week and sitting in a lot of the meetings that I was part of today, and that everybody is really charging ahead. And so we have teachers who are getting up and ready with even more content than ever before. They're learning how to use all of our tools that are available to them. And our principals are becoming the master troubleshooters as they're working directly with their staff to get things ready to go, even more so than before. So we thought it would be great tonight to just kind of give you a perspective on what's happening at the building level. And so we have 3 teams with us tonight. And in just a minute, I'm going to turn it over to our level directors to introduce to you who's with us tonight. We have elementary, and we have middle, and we have high school, to kind of try and give that complete picture of what this really looks and feels like at a school level, because we've kind of gone from this big event happening in the community, a kind of a crisis event, to closure, to provide minimal, to now provide much more robust and maximum services to our students and families, all the while deploying technology, getting digital resources ready to go, getting people trained on different things. And now we're really asking everybody to put that in motion for our students and our families. And this week we have lots happening at our school levels. And so I think it's important for the board and for the community to just get a sense of what that looks and feels like. So I'm going to first turn it over to our level directors and ask them to do some introductions for who is joining us tonight. And then what we'd like to hear from our participants is just some of your perspective on what this has felt like from a principal perspective, and then from our teachers who are joining us to just talk about the preparation and the things that you've learned, and how this looks and feels when you're also at home and away from your classroom and away from the typical tools that you would use as you're getting ready now to really engage our students in this remote learning environment. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our level directors, and I'm not sure which of you is going to start first, but I'm hoping you're ready, whoever is first.
I'm going to start. I'm Sue Ann Sullivan, Director of Elementary Education. I'm going to provide a brief overview and then turn it over to the school teams. So I first want to say thank you to Dr. Stavum and the board for asking us here to tell you a little bit about what our administrators and teachers and all staff have been busy doing since we started this school closure. So I will give you, again, a brief overview. There's a lot to cover, but basically they've been really hard at work making sure that they're making good, strong connections with their school communities. They have been contacting students and families through phone calls and emails and sometimes US mail, checking in, making sure that people have access to resources, learning resources, technology, food, meals, referring to childcare, etc. There's a lot involved. As I say these brief sentences, there's a whole lot behind each one of those things, procedures that need to be put into place, and contact methods. Once they know who needs technology and food, there's arranging safe procedures for the delivery of those items, whether it's at school or sometimes delivering to homes. There are families that need to come in and pick up necessary medication and belongings. There are arrangements to make for that. At the secondary level, and I know that Eastlake High team will talk a little bit more about this, but there's been additional communication with families of seniors who have credits and other important things to think about this year. Some examples of staff collaboration that are going on. It's crucial at this time that school staff feel connected and collaborate with each other closely, and that looks like virtual staff meetings, and some of them are daily in some schools, some of them are a couple times a week, once a week. Each school community is designing what works best for them. They're engaging in professional learning, and the administrators are coordinating and monitoring that. Administrators are working with individual teachers as well as teams of teachers in grade level and content areas as they're designing the remote learning and the current learning resources. And there's also district level work that continues to go on. There's springtime human resources, things like recruitment and interviewing and hiring that everyone is trying to figure out how to do effectively in a remote way. And everybody at the district level and the school teams have been working hard together to design learning resources and curriculum and assessment that will be effective for our students remotely. So I'm going to turn it over to Rick Burden now, the other Director of Elementary Education, and he's going to introduce the team from Rush Elementary.
Good evening, Dr. Stavum and board members. Happy to be here tonight. I am pleased and proud to introduce the team from Rush Elementary. They've been working hard to take care and connect with their families and their students, as well as collaborating and taking care of each other. I know the team from Rush has also been working hard to support the district and their colleagues in preparing for the remote learning and preparing materials and schedules and stuff for their colleagues. So I will introduce the team from Rush Elementary. We've got Lucy Davis, the principal. Erica Nation is a 5th grade teacher, and Jody Howerton is an English language teacher. So Lucy, I'll turn the time over to you. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks so much for having us here. Thanks, Rick, for that introduction, and thank you to the board and Dr. Stavum. You know, when we started this and our schools closed, I don't think any of us had any idea about what a huge learning curve this would be, and how much work all of our staff has been putting in. I am really proud of the entire Ben Rush staff and everything they've done. So just to talk a little bit about what's going on, we're really thinking of different ways of how we support our families during this time. We've written postcards to all of our students. We have actually made phone calls to all of our families as we were concerned that they didn't have the resources that they might need to both access sort of our academic materials, but also food and things like that. And so we worked really closely with our nutrition services, who are working so hard to get food to families. But for us, some of our families have a hard time getting to Rose Hill Middle School to pick up lunches. So we've developed a way that we can sort of deliver lunches to all of our families in need at that time. And then, you know, we have a lot of questions. And so, you know, answering those emails and really supporting those families as they get up and running with all of the things that we're asking them to do now with the remote learning. And then if we think about our staff and everything we've asked them to do, you know, very quickly they got up and going on Teams so that we can have regular staff meetings where we can share information and communicate and build that community. And we do that at least twice a week, if not more. And then remote learning, and what are the best practices in remote learning? So really thinking about that, and so that we're delivering really the best materials we can for students. And then we also have classified staff that we're working really hard with, and they are doing a lot of things to help support it. It was them who made the phone calls to our 700 students. They are currently doing some work around equity and a book study around that, and some PD around removing barriers for students, so we can really leverage this time to bring those people in and help with that. And then as Rick talked about, many of my team members, both Erica and Jody, who will speak next, and myself have been working on some of that district level work at looking at what does pacing guides look like between now and the end of the school year, knowing we have about 9 weeks of instruction on remote learning, so that we can really guarantee, have that guaranteed and viable curriculum for all of our students, so that we really have equity across the system. But I think really, you know, not having that day-to-day connection and checking in on our families and knowing that our students are in a good place and being supported is hard. We're so used to having that day-to-day interaction with our students and having to find other ways to make those connections. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Erica Nation. Erica is a 5th grade teacher at Ben Rush Elementary.
Hi, I'm Erica Nation. So over the past couple of weeks, we've been really looking at how to help students learn outside of the classroom. And beginning with that, I've been looking at how I can connect with students. I've been recording myself doing our class read aloud and then recording videos on Flipgrid. I've also been posting discussion questions to be able to allow kids to talk to one another on PowerSchool Learning, and then sending bi-weekly emails about what's going on at school. part of the professional development from our district around effective practices for online learning by reading the Hanover Research Toolkit and then exploring the LWSD online learning resources, and then reading the professional communities and collaboration document. And I've been looking a lot at the different learning tools that our district has, whether they're already ones that we've been using in the classroom, like OneNote and Dreambox and EduTyping, and then what ones I want to start using with my students, and trying to figure out how I can start using some of these new tools and how to support students at home. Because a lot of the things there are routines we started in the classroom and we can transition to home, but now it's like, how do we give them support when we aren't there with them? And so with my team, we've been meeting daily during the school week to figure out how we can best engage our students in the learning and what different things we need to teach them to help move them on to 6th grade. Part of that is also connecting with families. So we've been monitoring student progress on Lexia and Dreambox and EduTyping, then reviewing the completed work from students, and then sending home an email with families, just touching base with them and updating families on classroom ideas, and then providing feedback based on the work completion, and also helping families access online tools. I've been part of my team's piloting the new online teaching, our 5th grade team at Rush. And so today we launched the remote learning activities, and we're trying to figure out what works best for our kids. And last week I worked on the committee with elementary school teachers to develop the modified curriculum guides, sample lessons for teachers, and then parent-facing communication for teacher use. So overall, we've been communicating frequently with families and determining how we can best support families, and then transition from in-person learning to virtual learning. And then I'll pass it on to Jody Howerton, our EL teacher.
Thank you, Erica. So I just want to give some kudos to my Rush colleagues. We've collaborated so well as a staff and are really trying our very best to support students during this crazy time. So I'll just say a little bit about what it's like to be an interventionist teacher at this time. Most of the students on my caseload are very limited English proficient. Some are about to exit ELL, but that's posed a challenge in this learning environment. So during the first week of school closure, I wrote to every single student on my caseload a personal letter with a self-addressed stamped envelope. To date, I've received about 11 responses via snail mail and more via email, and I've responded to every single one, and that's been very, very fun. Second, EL teachers at Rush have been monitoring Lexia progress in collaboration with classroom teachers. And as students graduate to a new level, we send them their certificate of achievement, and then we send them the review skill builder packet to work on. Many of our limited English proficient families have difficulty navigating online resources when it comes to passwords and just different things like that. And so the EL team at Rush has been helping families navigate that with translators or just sort of online via phone calls, via Skype. Sometimes that looks like walking them through it, and sometimes it looks like just helping a parent not feel overwhelmed and encouraging them and say, it's okay, you've got this, you're gonna be okay. In addition, the EL team at Rush has developed Flipgrid response opportunities for students. That's a district approved platform for students to respond to a teacher prompt and record a short video, and then teachers get to respond, and that's been a very helpful tool for our EL students to practice their speaking. In addition, the EL team at Rush has developed some tracking tools so that we know which families we're talking with, which families we've collaborated with, and we're also documenting our collaboration with classroom teachers. Along with Erica and Lucy, I was a member of am a member of the Remote Learning Task Force. And last week I spent lots of time writing content and language objectives for the Wonders curriculum in kindergarten through 5th grade that will be used by parents, students, and teachers going forward. And also just the engagement in new technology learning. You know, the PD around best practices for remote learning, and I'm excited about the upcoming Teams training. I think that's going to be a really incredible tool to connect with our EL families. And with that, I will pass it back to Lucy.
Great, thank you so much. You know, I just wanted to conclude by thanking our staff and like the teachers across the district. They have been working so hard to shift entirely, you know, what they're doing in their practice to make remote learning really a viable and important, meaningful thing to our students. You know, as OSPI comes out with new directives and new information, they've just been so responsive and always sort of making those changes because they know it's what's best for students. And I think the other piece that the Rush staff, and I'm sure staffs across the entire district have done, is really looked after each other and really made sure to keep that community as a staff and to address those social and emotional pieces for us as well as we're making all of these changes and not being able to make that connection that we normally do. So, you know, thinking about our community, not only in our school, but also thinking about our community outside of that and really how we're supporting everyone in that. So thank you for having us, and I'm not sure who I'm passing it off to next.
I will take it back.
I want to thank you, Lucy and Jody and Erica for sharing with us tonight and for your dedication and hard work and taking care of our families and students and taking care of each other. And now I want to introduce Dale Cody, Director of Secondary Education, and he's going to introduce us to some middle school educators.
And I'm going to hold you up for just a minute, Rick.
Okay.
So Dale, hold on just for a second, because what I think I'd like to do is see if there are any questions for the elementary level, and then we'll do the same for middle and high school. Board members, do you have any questions for elementary?
Absolutely. And Erica, I apologize, I'm not picking on you, I'm just curious as all get out. Like almost all parents in the district, I very much want to know what a day of school is going to look like for a first grader and what a day of school is going to look like for a fifth grader. And so if you could give us anything on that, just sort of concrete, how much of it is small group instruction versus what should they expect it to look like?
And I'm going to repeat that just so everybody at home can hear that. The question from Director Carlson was just, what is a day in the life really going to look like when we're at full speed for an elementary student?
So last week, the Remote Learning Task Force was using this menu planning document that broke down for reading, writing, and math, how many minutes each student will be doing the different work, and it's based on, I think, what OSPI also released. So with the Remote Learning Task Force, we created different documents that parents will see from the teacher about like the different lessons, and it's not going to be like live lessons, but students can complete them at their own pace. So like if they can't do any on Tuesday, or they can do it on Wednesday, not at a certain time. But it really depends on the grade level of the student. For fifth grade, fourth, fifth grade, it's I think 2.5 to 3 hours a day. But for kindergarten and first grade, I think it's half an hour to 1 hour a day. So it's based on the different students.
And
so I can add a little bit to that as well. You know, really looking at, as we talk about these things and work through them at a district level, it's sort of balancing that academic piece on also that social and emotional piece that students are doing. So looking at what is reasonable for a kindergarten student in the course of a day on remote learning. So I believe over the course of the week, the suggestion right now is 3 math lessons, 3 reading lessons, and some writing pieces, as well as Dreambox and Lexia, work around that, and then some things from our music teachers, our PE teachers, and our librarian. And then there are some sort of ones that we are encouraging families to do as well around science and social studies, but really sort of zeroing in on those ones that are the core academic subjects. And then optional sort of enrichment activities as well. So families can sort of know what are the essential pieces and where are the pieces they can enrich for and help students do that.
And so if I can just restate what I think I'm hearing, they should expect some asynchronous learning opportunities, potentially with some small group work that'll be live, and then with a lot of support from their parents, which means our teachers are providing a lot of support to parents. Does that make sense?
So teachers will also have some times where families can check in and get that help, and students can check in as well to get that help that they need. So some predetermined times during the week for that, so that we're also supporting families in that academic piece and help so that they can help students if needed, or how we can help, or teachers can help students as well get that done.
Thanks.
Okay, other questions for our elementary team?
I have a quick question. Well, I don't know if it's quick. It depends on how much you want to answer, I guess. Have you found that there are parents that you just have not been able to connect with?
So we have worked really hard at BenRush to connect with all of our families. So teachers are kind of tracking through Dreambox and PowerSchool Learning and Lexia who's logging on and who's accessing the resources, and so we're doing a pretty close monitor of that. And teachers are reaching out to those families who haven't logged on, and then also sharing that with myself and Leslie Kyle, who's the associate principal, so that we are also reaching out to those families. Many of those families are also people that we are delivering meals to, and so we're able to sort of connect that way as well. I don't think there is a family right now that we haven't connected to. When we go to the new sort of remote learning, new learning starting on Monday, we'll start that again, because that's a whole sort of another set of expectations and a new change for parents, and so we will make sure that we're reaching out and connecting with families as well and doing some of that monitoring.
Thank you for doing that.
Other questions?
Yes, I have one, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I realize neither of y'all are special needs instructors, but can you give me a feel for how your special needs students, in particular the ones that are in all-day special needs, how their lessons are going to look like?
So we don't have any students at BenRush that are in sort of full day programs, okay. But we're absolutely, that is a huge concern and something we are looking really carefully at. So our special ed teachers have reached out to all of those families as well to get some information from them on what is the best way for us to support that learning for our special ed students. And so as we move forward this week, that collaboration between our special ed team and our sort of general ed classroom teachers is really going to focus on how to make sure that we are providing that learning for our special ed students in a way that that best meets the need of the student and also the family.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, this is Siri. Hi, first off, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to give us an idea as to how this is actually happening on the ground and the work that's going on. Greatly appreciate the speaking about equity and the reaching out to all the families. That's really one of the big sort of policy pieces. How do we make sure that all does mean all? And those extra efforts that your staff are obviously going through is working well, it sounds like, to be able to connect and appreciate that work. And also all the guides and working on that task force and being able to bring those things forward as we build those pieces. Those are good things to be able to make sure we do it effectively across all our schools. And they can also support other districts at the same time. So it's a great benefit to be able to do so. So actually, I don't have a lot of questions. I guess the one I would ask is, as you go through this, how will you be looking at what changes need to happen along the way and how things might shift as you go through? Because it's a learning curve, as you said, it's huge. So how do you feed that back and make sure you're adapting through it?
Yeah, that is a great question, and it is, like, I feel like sort of daily or weekly, we are making adjustments in what we're doing in order to support staff and students and families. And I think it is really reaching out and listening and connecting. One of the things that we did is when we phoned all of our parents, we did that initial phone call from Ben Rush Elementary, because then it looked like it was coming from the district. So it was more likely that parents would pick up that phone. But we also let them know that in the coming weeks, we would also be reaching out again, possibly from home. And so we sort of have a system where we have one of our classified staff who is sort of in charge of a certain set of families, so that they have that consistent reach out, not only from their teacher, but also from us sort of systematically as a school. And so I think just listening to families and sort of problem solving with our families, we have a fabulous community that will help us with that, and that both at a school level and an individual teacher level, I think is and that will change just like everything else as we learn new things.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, lost my mouse. All right, thanks, Lucy. You and your team are doing a great job, and we appreciate you joining us tonight. We know that this is a big week of lots of things happening to keep things moving ahead. And I think one of the hard things for all of us has been, like you said when you started, we're so used to getting a pulse on what's happening with children and families from that day-to-day interaction, that it's hard even as a district to really feel what teachers are doing, and they're so busy and they're preparing so much. I just had a lingering question for one of our teachers, is if you're preparing an average reading lesson, what kind of time has it taken you to prepare in this remote environment?
So I can answer that. I was on the reading group for the remote learning task force last week. So, sorry, I just got very distracted by my husband coming inside. For reading, there's a week at a glance at the curriculum guide that they made, and I was recording myself using Wonders online tools. And the first time I did it, I never used that feature on Wonders. It took me 15 minutes to plan. And then a second, I tried a different strategy, creating a PowerPoint, including the different skill set students would be working on. And that took me about 30 minutes the first time, and then I cut it down to 20 minutes the second time. So it really depends on the different resources you've been using throughout the year, or the different ones, like whatever platform you are going to go use the reading lessons on. Good.
Makes us happy that we have Wonders already in place. It's a useful thing. Okay, let's shift now to Dale and secondary.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Dale Cody. I'm the Director of Secondary Education, and thank you, Dr. Stavum and board members, for having particularly our teachers with us today. Sue Ann and Rick did a great job of giving an overview of the great work that many of our people are doing, so I'll try not to repeat that. Specific to middle school, it's my honor to have Finn Hill represent middle schools tonight. There are some unique things related to secondary, probably many. A couple of them, as we begin to think about, is that transition from 5th to 6th grade, or the transition from 8th to 9th grade, are things that we need to begin to think about, because that needs to look different. There are things like high school credits in middle school. If you're in the world language, or if you are in algebra 1 or geometry, those grades will be placed on your transcript. So there's some things there that we need to be thinking about. Teaming in general, I think teachers are really relying on one another in their content teams to help think about and create meaningful learning experiences for kids that just look very different. I know Finn Hill was one of the hubs of food distribution for pantry packs. I know Victor, I'm going to introduce in a minute, was there. It was really a key member in helping them get that organized and going. So I'm going to introduce 3 people. First person will be Victor Scarpelli, who's the principal at Finn Hill. The next person will be Kirsten Humble, who teaches ELL. And then the third person will be Sarah Erickson, who teaches math. So Victor, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Great. Well, good evening, Dr. Staven, Dr. Holman, board directors, our district directors, my colleague staffs, and of course our teachers. Thank you so much for having us this evening. It's almost feels like we're all out in our own wilderness, having fun and kind of trying to make life as normal as possible for everybody. So on behalf of the principals, I think that's maybe our biggest role right now is helping build the culture of our schools and helping to keep everybody engaged and caring and collaborating with each other. So from the perspective of the principal, what does a day look like for me? As Dale alluded, probably one of the biggest things we have here on at least our middle school campus is our food distribution, pantry packs, and the preparation that goes into that process every day here on the Finn Hill campus. People are coming in. We're also the hub for elementary packets also for the kids who really need them. They're coming into our schools. We have tables set up out front, and they're able to pick up their learning packets here at our schools. A lot of things that I've been able to probably work on is the same thing I would be during this time of year. We've received our staffing, and we're looking at our hiring practices, looking at even during this process now, we were able to hire a paraeducator last week. So all these extra processes and extra pieces have been put into place with our HR department, district, and staffing that's allowed us to go ahead and do those items that we normally would do on a continuing basis, and getting our schools ready not only to keep this year rolling, but to help plan for the future. Another thing we've been able to work with, and technology has been our friend. There's glitches off and on, as you've all noticed, but continue to work on our committees and our district strategic plan work. We've been able to do that. An example would be our facilities advisory committee we've been working on. We had a great meeting. We were able to break into subgroups and accomplish the goals that we had, and still continue the work we need to do this spring in order to make us successful for our future. As we said, mainly our communication with food service and trying to connect without repeating a lot of what the Rush folks have talked about. We try to reach out to all of our parents. We built grade level databases here at school where all teachers can contribute to that, as well as our secretaries and staff, of how we go ahead and connect with our kids. And those we haven't been able to connect with, we put these databases together where we as administrators, counselors, and staff can reach out to those families who haven't reached out to us or responded back during the time since we've been gone. So that's been very successful with us. We also have another plan starting for next Monday. We call it the 48-hour notice, is what I'm kind of dubbing it for now. If we don't hear back in 48 hours from the kids as the future comes forward, we're looking at how we're going to reach out to them, and we've been doing that through phones, emails, school messenger, things like that. Some of the other things we've been able to accomplish is working with our DLT team and working with our colleagues. We've been able to work on curriculum updates, planning for our professional learning guides, and remote learning that you've heard about a little bit earlier tonight. We've been able to go to all those meetings online together and still continue the strategic work we've been to move forward. We've also been able to conduct our staff meetings. At Finn Hill, we have a great culture. I can't compliment our staff and students for working so hard. Our teachers have done remarkable work of reaching out and enriching the students in their prior learning prior to this evening and prior to next week. And thank you to Sarah, Kirsten, who are going to speak in a little bit here, and all the staff who has gone forward and worked on the pilots this week and last week in order to prepare for the consumption next week of full online work with our kids and preparing our collaborative work time where teachers are able to come back and check in with their kids. They've done just a great job, and I can't thank them enough for all their hard work and dedication. Working with our custodians here at our buildings, obviously we left immediately on the day that school ended, so a lot of cleaning is happening, and just coordinating those efforts and working with our custodians and keeping our schools going. And as I spoke a little bit earlier, our food preparation here, keeping our clean, healthy environments. I've been working a lot with addressing student needs. One thing I love about middle school students, they love to email, call, or reach out to you in a heartbeat, and just addressing their needs and letting them know that they're cared for, we miss them, and that we're here to help them. I think that's been incredible. I think I probably answered 5 emails since noon today of kids asking about what's next week going to look like, what is the past going to look like, how are we moving forward, and just reassuring them that we don't have all the answers, but that we're here for them and able to communicate with them in all the different means possible. Another way we've been able to do that too is through School Messenger. I've been able to use both the written form of School Messenger, but also I've used the phone message version, where in the past I would reserve that just for an emergency or buses that aren't making it to certain areas. Been able to just to reach out and they can hear a voice to let them know that we care and we're thinking about them, and our staff during our meetings every week. It's been great working on teams, but we've also, I think every one of them wants to talk to their kids and reassure them that we care about them. We've also been able to conduct our IEP meetings and our 504 meetings. It's been different, but it's been also very reassuring that our families have been able to participate. We've been able to share with our families through technology, and if they don't have technology, we've mailed them packets ahead of time so they can review their children's IEPs or 504 plans, and been able to share those here with them. As an example, today, this morning's IEP meeting I was in, we had the IEP right on the screen. The parent was able to go through it with us, as well as having the teachers with us, as if we were all in the room together on a normal day. We're coordinating classified staff work. I think that's probably been not even so much of a challenge as it is coordinating who can come in and when they can come in. Our paraeducators, our instructional assistants and secretaries, we're all looking at different job descriptions now. We're supporting teachers. I think the question came up from Mark a little earlier. How are we supporting our special needs staff? It's been great having our paraeducators come in and prepare packets for our transition kids, and we've been able to get those packets delivered to them. So we've been doing a lot of that. We do follow our social distancing and being able to go out into the community and deliver those packets to our kids. So at least they're getting some kind of reassurance that their school is happening, but they're not in our buildings. And the teachers, we've been able to reach out to them with student packets. And last but not least, a lot of phone calls. I kind of like it. It's going back to, instead of just texting, I'll text somebody, but now they'll come back with a phone call. So the one-on-one and talking to kids has been awesome, as well as our teachers and staff. And people can reach out at any time and get a hold of us or say, hey, give me a call when we get a chance. And then tomorrow, as a good example, I have 2 meetings set up with some of our long-term substitute teachers, as well as prospective teachers for our future. So hopefully I didn't repeat a lot of what's been going on in the other buildings, but that's what's happening here at Finn Hill. And now I'd like to introduce our teachers to talk to you a little bit about the teacher perspective. And is Kirsten coming up first?
Sure, I can come up first.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. One of the successes that I wanted to bring up first is how communication has been going with our district and with our school. We are doing a lot of communicating with families, as you've heard. The district has been communicating, administration, teacher teams, teachers, intervention teachers, and we're actually having conversations as teachers about how to streamline communication, because we don't want to over communicate and overwhelm parents. So that has been impressive to me, because when we're in the building, the conversation is, have we reached out to that family? And now it's sort of, have we reached out too much? Is it too much information? Is it overwhelming? So I think this has actually been a good thing for family engagement. For how I spend my days personally, as an EL teacher, I have been spending a lot of my time getting in touch with my EL families. It started out with emails, and I got a lot of quick responses from EL parents, very enthusiastic, wanting to know, what can I do to help my student? Where is my student's work? Questions like that. And then using the Pacific Interpreter phone service to follow up with families that I had not heard back from. We've gotten a lot of responses from EL families, which is wonderful. Sometimes it's in English, sometimes we're using Google Translate back and forth, sometimes it's the Pacific Interpreter Service, but we use whatever we need to do to get in touch with those families. And when we talk to them, they're able to ask questions, they're able to express their needs. One challenge that has come up that I have spent some of my time mitigating is, as many other teachers and administrators have expressed, we've been working really hard on getting hotspots and meals to students. But I've learned that when a student receives a hotspot, this might be the first time that they've actually used the internet in their home to access their education. So that's also a huge learning curve for them. So it's wonderful that they have the internet, but they actually need a teacher or some sort of resource to then help them move to that next step where they are able to navigate the teacher pages and figure out what they need to do and how to submit that work, because perhaps they've been using just paper copies at home in the past. One of the solutions that my staff members have come up with, it actually wasn't me, it was a colleague of mine, but it was wonderful. We are sending personalized lesson plans to some of our EL students and CCing their parents on it. For example, if we are concerned that an EL student, due to language proficiency, is going to struggle to navigate 5 or 6 teacher pages, then a point teacher, either me or another teacher, will contact that student's teachers and ask, what's a summary of what that student needs to do this week? And then we can send a personalized lesson plan for that week to that student and parent so that they can manage that work and hopefully get some of that work back to us. I've also spent a good amount of time clarifying some communications for EL families, just because of the language barrier. Families have questions about maybe some emails they receive or phone calls, and so I spend a good bit of my time on the phone or responding to emails clarifying some of the information that those EL families have received. I'm also our school's 504 coordinator for 8th grade and also for EAS, and so I've been spending time setting up those meetings. As Victor mentioned, those meetings are continuing, and so setting up those meetings and also having them regularly has been an important part of how I've spent my last several weeks. I want to close with this situation and how it's helped us look at the whole student. I know that academics are really, really important and a huge focus of schools, but I think that what has happened over the past month has helped us look at the whole student a little bit more, not just the academics, but also the social emotional needs of our students. Teachers in my school, and I know in the whole district, are reaching out to students via email or whatever and asking genuinely, how are you? And some of the responses that we're getting are more than we might get in the classroom, where it's just a, hey, how are you? Good, how are you? It's really, how are you? And getting a deep response with how our students are doing, and then us responding to them. So something I've always heard is that education is building relationships, and I definitely believe that, and I think that we are really focusing a lot on that. So with that, I think I will turn it over to my colleague, Sarah, who is an awesome math teacher at Finn Hill.
Thank you, Kirsten. That's a great segue into what I was about to open with, which is that for me personally, I feel like there's been a lot of information coming at us from everywhere, all the way from the president of our country to OSPI, our governor, the district, our administration. And so one of the things that's been hard for me is to synthesize all of this information and then boil it down into, what do my students and their families need in order to continue with their education. So I feel like in the last few weeks I've been walking this fine balance between disseminating enough information and letting students know that their education and continuing their education is really important. Balancing that with making sure that they feel like they are safe and that their emotional well-being is important to me. So that's sort of what I've been struggling to do over the past few weeks, but it's been really great that the district has all of this technology already in place that we can use to kind of start getting some of our work underway. So my colleagues have been working together to figure out at middle school, you know, kids have 6 periods and we don't want to overload them with a bunch of information and emails and where do they find this and that. They're not quite completely self-sufficient at this point. So what we've done is we've been working not only in content teams but in grade level teams, and each grade level is sending out a Monday email that encompasses everything that the student will have to do for their classes. So it's in a calendar form so parents can see what their students have to do and the students can see. And then we've also taken all of our individual PowerSchool pages and we've created remote learning pages for each grade level where it's like a one-stop shop where students and their parents can just click and find all of the classes right there with hyperlinks to take them wherever they need to go. So that's a start, but it also looks like we're going to be continuing with that work based on some of the emails I've gotten today about sending out weekly emails and how to communicate with families. So that's great. I'm really looking forward to the teams, the classroom teams, learning that we're going to be doing coming up, because one of the things that I've missed most is being able to continue to build those relationships with my students. Like Kirsten said, and some of the other teachers said, it's hard to not see the kids every day. I think that has been one of the hardest things, and so I feel very disconnected. And so being able to actually chat with them and see them in person is going to be, I think, a game changer for us. I've also been using Flipgrid and been able to learn some really interesting things about my kids. They're bringing their family pets into their Flipgrid videos and their families, and I'm learning more than I ever could in the classroom about who they are as people, so that's been great. And then some of the other things that we're doing as a school to connect with kids is we're continuing with our Character Strong program, and we're using social media to continue to send out kindness challenges to our kids, which has been really great to see what kind of things they're doing and try to connect with them on that way. And then just to close, a few things that are kind of specific to my job as a math teacher in middle school, some open-ended questions that have not yet been answered that are out there. I teach algebra as one of my classes, and so we're still kind of wrestling with the idea of how we're going to be doing algebra placement next year. What do high school credits look like going for the kids that are currently in algebra? And then how do we decide if students are ready to move forward into those next classes? So those are just some things that we're thinking about. But yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you. I don't know who I'm passing it off to.
You're passing it off to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are doing awesome work. This is exactly what tonight is designed for, which is just really hearing from people who are working directly with our kids and families and what that feels like. And some things we know exactly what to do, and other things have definitely been learning and will continue to learn as we go, as we talked about. Questions for our middle level team from any of our board members?
I just have a quick question. This is Cassandra.
Cassandra.
For the district in general, what is Flipgrid, and can you send us a link? We don't have to talk about it now, but I think I want to play with this and bring my pet too.
We'll get that out to you.
Okay, thank you, Victor.
Flipgrid is a tool. I'm trying to look at my list. Who's best equipped to describe Flipgrid? Mike, are you best equipped to describe Flipgrid?
I am not. Probably one of our teachers would be great.
Jody, you might be able to to explain Flipgrid, because I know you do it with the EL students every week. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
I can definitely help. So Flipgrid is a Microsoft tool, district approved already, and it's one-way communication. I think of it like a walkie-talkie. So a student leaves a message, or so first a teacher leaves a prompt, and then a student leaves a message, and then a teacher approves the message and then responds, and then other students can respond. So it's sort of like this walkie-talkie. I don't know if anybody's ever used Marco Polo as an adult, but it's very similar to that, but for kids. And everything is moderated by the teacher. And it's been kind of a lifeline at Rush, actually, for kids to connect with each other, to post their thoughts. It's adorable.
It sounds like a great asset, especially for kids who are missing their friends, as well as getting their homework done.
100% yes.
And this is something that Jody also said is moderated, and that's why you've heard us talk about that we didn't just open up everything, because we also have to ensure student safety and that there's somebody watching the exchanges that are happening, because they can go a number of different ways very, very quickly. And this is a good tool for that. And so that, coupled with then actual learning prompts, makes it a good kind of I would think of it as kind of like a bulletin board, and posting messages and responses to messages is another way to think about it.
Just old-fashioned fun.
It sounds like a community circle. Like if you're in an elementary school classroom and, you know, typically there's a community circle time where they're answering a question and connecting with each other. I'm using it as an EL teacher, but many of our classroom teachers are using it to have students answer that community circle question. So it's been a good tool for connection.
It sounds versatile across the board. Thank you so much.
Could I add one quick thing about Flipgrid?
Yes.
I learned that students are able to respond on their phones, and some teachers that I've spoken with have observed an uptick in participation when they use Flipgrid, possibly for that reason. So it's just nice that students are able to access it, however.
And I will say, it's a little better as a teacher when you use your phone.
Great. It sounds wonderful. Maybe, Victor, you can send me a Flipgrid and I'll answer you.
Okay.
It's a good. It's also a good.
With a phone call, then a text. Yeah.
It's a good
Yeah,
point,
tell me
though,
how to
about the
do it.
devices and the accessibility of the devices, because we know some of our kids choose to use a phone, and other kids, that might be the only device they have right now, or that's available to them if others in their family are using a device or limited internet. So there are things that have different functionality depending on the device that you are using them on. So that's part of our new learning. Great job, middle school team, and thank you for being with us tonight. And
May I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. My question actually is, as you speak about having 6 periods, I know there's been some concern of how does a student or a family handle when you have 6, or even high school when you have 7. How will that get coordinated? You had mentioned that you were combining things. I'm not sure I quite understood that. So I'm just trying to understand a little better of how that's coordinated.
I'll just speak in a general fashion of how we're looking at it. We're going to work with our department chair team and work on some different systems of how we're going to collaborate with the kids. The teachers are working either cross-curricular as well as grade level. So we've had that opportunity to do that. We're looking at putting together a schedule. As I'm looking down here, I've sent it out to our department chair team today, 3 or 4 different models that we're going to look at making a decision on, so the kids have some continuity during their days of the week. And then, as I think one of the elementary folks brought up, just because they can't be there at a specific time, then they can move forward during their free time during the week when they can actually work on their schoolwork. So the teacher can dedicate their time to giving instruction, students can access that instruction, and then produce the work or the reinforcement somewhere along that journey. But we're breaking it down instead of like, we're doing it by subject matter right now, unless we make a different decision on Tuesday afternoon with our department chair team. But I would guess that's what we're probably going to be looking at. It's grade level subject matter.
So when you say it's by subject matter, does that mean whoever's teaching Me Language Arts will all have the same, every student will have, in 6th grade, will have the same language arts work that they're doing regardless of their teacher.
Yeah, they can plan together, but I'll give an example. So like on a Tuesday morning, if you're in period 3, and period 3 happens to be language arts, that will be the time that the language arts period 3 kids are gonna get instruction from Ms. Murray, if that's her 3rd period class. And then those kids will be able to get their reinforcement from that thing. And then during that work week is when those kids can reinforce their learning. If that sort of made sense, Sarah.
Can I jump in, Victor?
Sure, Sarah, go ahead.
Because I think you're referring to like the office hours that we're going to be discussing, where we actually get to have one or small group access to kids via chat, right? Versus I think the question is about like what the work will look like on a day-to-day basis. Is that more the question?
I think it's both. It's how are things coordinated so that people aren't stepping on each other with instruction, and then also coordinating what you were talking about between kind of when kids should be accessing direct instruction tools and when they can access a teacher for support and office hours.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so Victor was referring to the office hours, and then as far as we're following the district guidelines of 30 to 45 minutes per class for work, and trying to just make sure that we're kind of following that guideline.
I think Siri was maybe also asking about, one of you made a reference to what is in Power School and how you have things posted there. Would you talk just for a minute about how you're using Power School and what that looks like to a student when they log in to kind of see what they have for assignments?
Sure. So if you're a 7th grade student, normally you would log in and each teacher would have a separate Power School page, which would be organized. We try to make them all look similar, but each teacher has their own way of doing things. So now a 7th grade student will only log into one Power School page, and on that Power School page they will find a calendar for the week. And in that calendar, each subject will be listed with what they're doing every day. And then there's also sub-pages where students can go to access more information for that class, maybe discussion boards, drop boxes where they can turn things in, links to teacher emails and things like that.
So that's really working to sort of streamline that component you talked about, so they can go to one place, find everything in one place, as opposed to going into 6 different locations.
Yes.
Fabulous.
That's one of the.
I think that's one of the big concerns I keep hearing a lot, actually, is how to manage the multiple emails from teachers, and you spoke to that communication. So that's a big piece that's coming through. So appreciate that you're being very proactive in how you look at that and ways in which to streamline that. So that's exciting.
We're trying our best.
That's a big learning piece, though. I think we all assume we're not communicating enough, and I think we've gotten just little bits of feedback that says, I'm getting, I can average 25 to 50 emails a day depending on how many children I have and how many subject areas that they are getting assignments in. So I appreciate that too, but that's a learning as we go kind of a thing, and it's interesting to hear how you've kind of solved that problem. Other questions from board members for middle level?
Well, I've actually got a strange one for both middle and L. Is teaching when the kids are, when the teachers are recording lessons or when the kids are interacting with the teachers, is the teaching coming from the teacher physically being in their normal classroom, or is it their teacher being at home? The reason I'm wondering about this is that a school, once you take the kids out of it, is effectively socially distanced. Great. And it might make kids feel like it's still school if they're seeing a familiar environment behind the environment, the teacher. But that's, I'm just wondering.
I can only speak, Chris, to what we learned a little bit today regarding, Microsoft, the student version of Teams, and a lot of the protections that are in place. The teachers are going to be doing it at home. We have very few that are actually coming in the building. If they are, it's coming in to get their stuff and leave. So, but they're back. The way we were taught today is our backgrounds are blurred. So, whether we're at home, so I agree. It takes away, like today, if you look at my background that I put in here just for entertainment purposes, but, I've used just the white wall in my house, and everybody goes, that's just really boring. But unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to get the ambiance, but I have to tell you, as I looked at the different backgrounds, I see myself now focusing more on the person than I am the background or the chalkboard or the whiteboard or whatever's behind the teacher anymore. And it's pretty amazing. So I don't know, but I would agree with you. Where we've taken the classroom away from the kids. It's another one of those things that Sarah said, we miss the kids, but I also miss going in the classrooms to see what they're learning. The great part about this is the teachers are sharing with us at our school what they're doing. So today I did the language arts lesson with one of my teachers. I just took a break and I said, I want to see what Miss Garrels is doing in the classroom. So I clicked her thing, watched the whole thing, and it was great. She taught a little lesson on social first. We know, here's how you do your calendar. We want to reinforce how to do your plan. How are you planning your day? So it's the personalization piece has really taken that effort. So we've combined our Falcon time, accidentally probably, I'm thinking like we are all doing it together. We're combining that personalization period with normal everyday teaching instead of it being a separate standalone class. Teachers just aren't delivering. They're taking that interest in the kid first, but they're not going to be able to see the classroom.
Yeah, no, thanks. Just wanted to ask.
And just for clarity, our buildings are still closed. And so everybody is working from home. They might have grabbed some things that they need out of their classroom, but they're operating from home. What we don't know is if that will change at all between now and the end of school. We know students won't come back, but we don't know yet if there's going to be any option, because we could do some social distancing with teachers in classrooms. We'd have to be really cautious with the common areas. But it's a good point to bring up because we basically stripped everybody of the tools that they use except for some of those basic resources and just how you move around your classroom when you're doing your work. And so it's a new adaptation. When you're talking to this thing in front of you, you can see faces, but that is not like interacting with children in your classroom. So I appreciate you asking the question. Any other questions from middle level? All right, thanks. Sounds like you're doing great work at middle level with some questions that we still have to work through for transitioning 8th to 9th grade and some of those high school credit-y kinds of things, but we will work through that. So I'm gonna hand it, I think, am I going back to Dale or Matt for high school with our Eastlake team?
I can take it from here. All right, welcome everybody. I'm Matt Livingston, Director of Secondary Education. Good evening, Dr. Stavum and our Board of Directors. And thanks for the opportunity to share the work going on at the high school level. The teacher teams at high schools are pretty large, so collaboration is pretty critical to make sure that our students are getting quality and meaningful learning that they deserve. One of the things that's on the minds of secondary students and their parents is, what are their grades going to look like? How do assessments work? And especially in this distance learning environment where you have asynchronous classes and assessments, what does that look like? So I know that our high school teams are working hard on making sure that our grading practices are transparent and clearly communicated and fair. You heard earlier about the class of 2020, and a lot of special attention is being given to that class. We're being very intentional to ensure that all of their hard work over the past, not just 4 years, but 13 years, to prepare them for graduation this spring, that they have everything they need. Counselors are working hard to monitor student credits and making sure that transcripts are accurate and being ready to present to the colleges that the students have applied to. We want to make graduation a very meaningful experience and celebrate the students for reaching that milestone, though that is, of course, up in the air a little bit now of what graduation is going to look like. Behind everything that I just shared, there's teams and teams of teachers working hard every day with each other and collaborating with their administrative team to figure out how to produce those best lessons for their high school students. make sure that those assessments are meaningful and connected to those lessons, and make sure that our seniors graduate on time. So to share more of the details behind those topics is a team from Eastlake, Dr. Chris Beatty, the principal, Rochelle Horner, who's one of the humanities teachers, and I thought it'd be appropriate to bring a counselor to this meeting to speak to the students and that particular, the class of 2020. So I'm really glad that Sarah Anderson, one of the Eastlake counselors, is able to join us. So at this point, I will hand it off to Chris Beatty.
Chris, you're muted.
I need to unmute myself, don't I? Yes, now we're good. Okay, so now that I'm unmuted, thank you, Matt. Just to start off, I wanted to just acknowledge, can everyone hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Yep.
I just wanted to acknowledge that it's been not just a crazy and unprecedented time, but a really difficult time full of worry and sadness for both students and staff. I've always been impressed by the professionalism, the creativity, and the flexibility of the staff at Eastlake, and this time just reinforces what I already knew, that our staff is full of stars. At Eastlake, specifically, we had a compounding traumatic experience where we tragically lost 2 students the weekend after the closure. So that, in addition to the closure, just created a lot of turmoil in our school. And Sarah will talk a little bit about how counselors have supported our kids in navigating both the student deaths and the trauma around this closure. One of the things about the closure I think that's important is that we have a lot of kids that depend on schools for important social connections that they're missing, and also important, mental health supports that they're missing. And so Sarah will talk about how we're still supporting them, but also all kids are just missing out on irreplaceable aspects of youth. Whether that's their senior year in sports or their opportunity to sing in Carnegie Hall. That's one of the things that is just really sad for me too, is we have kids that are missing, life milestones. The other thing about this time though is I think there's a lot of worry. I think there's a lot of worry about our communities and about our families, but also about our staff. Our head custodian was hospitalized with COVID-19, and just all of these various factors just creating a lot of, like I said earlier, turmoil at Eastlake. And the professionalism of our staff has been incredible. There's been a lot of planning around this closure, which has essentially been made up of a lot of virtual meetings. I never imagined that I would be on Teams or in virtual meetings this frequently. A lot of logistics that other principals and Dr. Livingston have referenced, and a lot of questions, some of which we have answers to and some which we don't yet, and are just waiting until they get to that level of priority. The goals during this time for our staff has really been around, first and foremost, supporting struggling kids. That we have kids in need that depend on school for certain things, and making sure that, to the best of our ability, we're still supporting those kids. Maintaining some semblance of school culture. We're still sending our weekly school newsletter. Our health and fitness teachers are doing an incredible job with something called Wolves in Action, where they are using social media to promote the ways that they're staying mentally and physically healthy during this time, and kids are doing the same thing, and it's a way to connect with one another. And then the big lift now is really the transition to required remote learning, and it's definitely that learning by doing. And one of, I think, my critical roles is going to be ensuring that we share best practices, and we really find the best ways in this remote learning environment to serve all kids. And I think that that's going to be a really big challenge. So I'm going to pass it off to Sarah Anderson, a counselor at Eastlake, and she's going to talk about the support for the well-being of our students and how we're supporting our seniors towards graduation.
Thanks, Chris. So kind of the two big focuses for counselors right now have been on mental health support and then graduation tracking, like Chris said. So we, with the tragic passing of our two students, this was definitely, in terms of how we were supporting our students, there was a complete urgency over that weekend. So right away we were working with Johnny Fu and just got our telehealth services up through Evergreen, which was great. And really right away we were able to start having that access for students. We compiled lists of students who were friends with the student that passed away, and then reached out to teachers, and also our parent community was huge in kind of helping us create this list of students that we wanted to make sure we were connecting with right away. And so we had our counselors were reaching out, and then we had our mental health therapist also reaching out just to make sure that kids were feeling supported and then also knew where they could get additional support. And what's been great about the telehealth is that's been ongoing. So in addition to that, with all of our students that our mental health therapist at school was seeing ahead of time, they've been able to continue checking in on those students with scheduled appointments. And then they also have drop-in hours. So from 11 to 2 every day, they're in what's like a virtual waiting room. And so kids can log into the waiting room and then meet with our mental health therapist, which is nice. And so we've pushed that out over social media and through our newsletters and just emails with parents and concerned students, just to really make sure that they know about that resource and they're taking advantage of it. And then we've also sent out a lot of other resources. So there's a great texting hotline if kids aren't comfortable talking on the phone. So lots of different things. And then we also have a drug and alcohol counselor from YES, who she is available to do video calls with kids as well. So we've been able to connect her with all the students that she was seeing prior to the closure, and so that they can be checking in and connecting as well. And then all of our counselors had lists of kids that were kind of on our radar here and there, but we also wanted to make sure we weren't missing anyone. So what we did is we sent a survey to all of our teachers of who are the kids that on the day-to-day basis you were checking in with, so that we can make sure that those kids are feeling supported. They know about all the resources as well. And all of our teachers have been great too. Today I got an email from a science teacher who had sent out a survey to her class, and based on someone's results, she was like, I'm a little bit worried about him. So then I sent an email to check in on him as well. So there's a lot of collaboration happening to support our students, which has been really nice. And then graduation tracking is huge right now. A lot of seniors that are extremely worried about where they stand in terms of graduation. Our college is going to take their credits. What's it going to look like? Is it pass fail? And so just really connecting with them that there's a lot of different things being put into place so that we can make sure that they are on track to graduate, and just kind of communicating with them as we're learning as well, and kind of being transparent, on situations that we do and don't know about. And then a lot of communications with colleges in terms of what are their views on the pass, no pass, and even thinking about our current juniors, and they're now not taking the SAT or ACT this spring, and a lot of colleges are now waiving that for next year. And so just really making sure that our kids feel good about graduation requirements. We've gone through at Eastlake every single senior, so we know exactly what they need to graduate. And so we also know too if we need any waivers put in place because of the closure, if we need to apply those. So just making sure, and then emailing those kids that were our seniors at risk, and kind of just checking in with them to make sure they're feeling good. And then our teachers too have been doing a great job as well with connecting with them. And then we used to send a quarterly newsletter out. We've upped that to a weekly newsletter. So each week we're sending out a newsletter, and that includes different mental health resources. We're trying to have different activities that can keep them busy. So over spring break, we recommended take a virtual tour of where you would have gone on spring break and things like that. We're doing a lot of college info that we're pushing out through that. So taking virtual college campus tours. We provided resources so that they could start making their college lists, and just other things that kind of come across, AP information, because AP testing has changed, and just everything we can with that. And then typically this time of year, we meet with every junior to make sure that they're set up for senior year, all the credits that they need, start talking to them about either college or community college, technical schools, whatever their post-secondary plan is. So we've emailed all those students, we've surveyed them, and then we're connecting individually based on questions that they have after. So really just trying to individualize and personalize as much as we can, and still trying to connect with kids in other ways too. So teachers have been great also when we can't get a hold of kids, if we can connect with teachers to see if they have. So it's been a team effort, which has been awesome. I will pass it off to Rochelle, who's one of our humanities teachers.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it's been like to transition from doing the optional enrichment opportunities to then trying to do these required actual graded learning experiences online. I'm part of the pilot, so I actually started that transition last week, and I was really worried that I had lost all of my students because they weren't really engaging with the enrichment opportunities, which, I mean, they're high schoolers, I get it, but they came back, right? I sent out that email on last Monday, and they were all right there, like, okay, what do I need to do? And they were doing it, and that's been really great. What has made transitioning to online learning, which I don't have a degree in, right? I have a master's degree in teaching. That's not a master's degree in online teaching. So what has made that really good is the online tools that have already been available to us for years. So the OneNote, the PowerSchool, WeVideo, those tools I really have been leaning on very, very heavily in order to deliver this instruction. And it's actually transitioned very nicely where I can modify a PowerPoint very much like I do sometimes if I am going to be at a training. I say, okay, I need you to read this section in your book, and I need you to then get onto PowerSchool and answer these discussion questions and respond to your peers. So I'm able to modify the PowerPoint. They have access to that through our OneNote and our PowerSchool, and then they can engage in that online discussion on PowerSchool, which is something that they've already been doing this entire year, which is really great. Also on PowerSchool, and on OneNote also that has been nice, is the collaboration features. So like the wiki projects on OneNote. My APUSH class has been working on a DBQ project where they create a DBQ, and this helps them get ready for the DBQ they have to write on the actual exam. And the students were able to collaborate and do all of that through the wiki project on PowerSchool, as well as through the collaboration space on OneNote. And so that has been a really great way to help kids communicate, particularly if some students don't have phones, they can't text each other, they still have that connection through the OneNote and the wiki project. Something else that has actually also been really making this transition doable is the flexibility I have in my schedule. So somebody mentioned earlier trying to do 2 jobs at once. I am a parent. I have a 21-month-old at home, and so trying to be a parent and teach at the same time is actually impossible. I'm learning. So being able to adjust my schedule to match with my husband, who is an essential worker. So he has her in the morning until 9, and then I can take a break and be with her, get her lunch, do all of those parenting things, apparently be a preschool teacher. I've never done that. It's been exciting. And then pick back up with my students from 12 to 3 while she's taking her nap. So that has actually been a really great way for students to know from 12 to at least 1:30, because sometimes she wakes up early. These are my office hours. I will respond to you immediately over email. But also letting them know you can email me at any time, just as you always have done. Letting them know that area of communication is still open has been really key, so they can email me with questions and I can email them back whenever I have a moment throughout the day. I've also relied very heavily on those district trainings. So the online learning training that they had come out a couple of weeks ago, I went through that. That was very, very helpful in helping me re-envision what does this curriculum look like in an online space when students are only supposed to have 30 to 45 minutes of learning per class per day, which makes perfect sense. What is really truly essential? What skills do they really need to do, and which are which do we not need to do anymore? What can I cut back on? And so that online learning has been really, really helpful. I'm really excited for the Teams training, as everybody has pointed out, as I agree that our biggest hurdle has been trying to figure out how do we keep that classroom culture that we have if we don't have a classroom together? How do we see these kids face to face? I have been making weekly videos for my students to try and keep some of that classroom culture. So I know somebody asked about, well, you're not in your classroom anymore. How do they see your classroom? So I always have up on my board what I'm currently reading and what I'm listening to, and I just took that and I made that a segment in my weekly video. I also tell them who wrote my favorite response paper. It was an assignment that I do for my UW comp class, and who had the funniest titles and an assignment that they turned in. So I just put those things into the video, so it kind of still feels like we have that classroom culture. Power School has also been really important to try and keep that classroom culture. We made a wiki page about, what are you doing while you're in this isolation? And kids always like to hear stories from our own lives. It makes us more human. So I put up a segment called The Daily Dose of Aria, who is my daughter, and it's just a picture or a funny video of something she's doing. And students have been sharing theirs as well, either through emailing it to me or putting it on the wiki project as well, to try and, again, keep that camaraderie that we have always had in our classroom. Something that is a challenge that we're still trying to figure out, and we're hoping we can do through teams, is how do we have, and this is maybe a uniquely humanities issue, is how do we have those really valuable discussions? A lot of what the learning is discussing back and forth about these topics of race and class and gender and sexuality, these things that we talk about in our class. And they're all tied into what's going on right now with COVID-19. I think the worldwide pandemic has really kind of brought to light a lot of the inequities in our society, and that's what we would be talking about in the classroom. And so the online discussions through Power School are great, but they're not truly real discussions. So how do we do that through teams? Can we really do it with, I have 84 UW Comp students. That's going to be an unmanageable discussion. But can I have 3 mini discussions throughout the week? When will I have time to do that? Can I do that in an hour and a half? What if Aria wakes up? She will join our discussion, and that might be interesting or distracting. I don't know. So really trying to manage that home life with work life that is now happening at the same time, while keeping that connection to our students is a big question that we're all trying to figure out. In terms of structuring our day, what has been really great is having that guidance from the district to say, make sure you have what you want your students to do for the full week already planned out, and then send that to them. That then allows them the flexibility on their end to structure their week with what's going to work best for them. Because we don't know what's happening in every single one of our students' lives. Maybe they are taking care of their siblings. Maybe they are taking care of an elderly family member. As Sarah pointed out, many of them are struggling emotionally and mentally, and maybe home isn't the safest place or the place that is the best for their mental health. And so how do we balance that social emotional well-being with their academics, and I think that flexibility for them, knowing what they have to do at the beginning of the week and to be able to structure that for themselves, is going to be really, really key. Something else that has been a blessing, I think, is that I do teach a UW in the high schools course, and UW actually continued. They never went on pause. And so I have been doing online learning with my UW comp kids, and so I've been able to see some of the challenges and the things that we're going to need to think about in terms of everybody, once all high school teachers go to online learning. And one of those is, what do you do with students who just don't respond? And because my UW in the high schools class is seniors, they need this class to graduate. And so a really big learning for me was how do I talk to these kids when I can't talk to them face to face? And so out of the 84 students, I had 19 who just were not engaging at all. And so I just sent out an email asking, what can I do to help? Is it technological? Like, do you not have access? Is it emotional? Are you hurting? I totally understand. Are you just playing video games? Just let me know. I want to help you. And every single one of the students responded, which was amazing. The majority of them were playing video games, and they're like, I got this. I'm going to get on it. But there were about 5 or 6 who really truly were struggling with some very personal issues. A couple of them were friends with the 2 students who passed away, and they just needed some time. They needed a minute, and they needed some understanding and some grace. And so I was able to offer that to them. And I think that differentiation and making sure to check in with your students is going to be really key. And it's going to be a big learning curve for a lot of us who have high expectations at the high school to be like, what do I need to chill out about a little bit here? Because this is a completely unusual time for all of us. I'll speak briefly about the AP communication, because that has been really helpful between our AP coordinators and College Board, getting us as AP teachers the information that we need in order to be successful with basically a brand new test. All of our tests are different than what we have done before. And so it's been really great that the coordinators have been sending us consistent emails at least once a week, it seems like, in order to keep us updated about the different options that the College Board is providing us, as well as things that our students need to know in order to access this test, which is they're now taking at home and online, as well as making sure we get access to the College Board resources. And so that has been really helpful that they have been on top of that and keeping us in the loop, and has brought down a lot of my anxiety, which then helps bring down the students' anxiety who are emailing me like, I don't know I'm going to pass this test. I'm like, you're going to pass the test. You're going to be fine. So yeah, that is basically a wrap up of the high school stuff. So I'll pass it back to you, Dr. Statham.
That's a lot going on at high school. A lot of kids and a lot of things as our young adults are dealing with the realities of this and still looking at how they can keep moving through their high school career. We know there's a lot of milestone things that all of our kids are missing, but particularly with our high schoolers, and we're going to keep trying to think about good solutions for that. Questions from board members for our high school team?
So, Chris, I appreciate the degree to which you guys have had a sort of double trauma, but one of the things that I'm very curious about, and this actually extends to all grade levels, is this is the equivalent of our district getting hit by a hurricane. This is a traumatic event across the board for all of us, and although the teachers are putting on a brave face, what are we doing to support them in terms of mental health? I mean, they're stuck trying to be professionals to do this from home, which is damn near impossible, while their 21-month-olds are playing on the keyboard. I mean, how do we give our teachers that grace that they're going to need?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, I think that just in our profession, I think we're trained to be strong for others and always be there to support others. And I just think it's incredibly important to remind staff the importance of taking care of yourself. You know, you take care of yourself to take care of others. And like Rochelle shared, you know, she has the priority of being a mom first, and then a teacher second. And so I think it's one, just Dr. Statham has talked about this, and I have as well with the staff, is just giving them, you know, permission and the grace to do what they need to do to get through this, and understand that teaching is a really important role, but so is all the other complications that this has brought about in all of our lives. And so, you know, that's kind of a general answer. For more specifics, there are support networks for teachers that need to reach out to someone, a professional, and get some help that we've shared with people. But I think that's a great question.
Yeah, I'll just chime in. We have some supports that are geared for teachers, and I think we have more over time, but we talked a little bit about that. If we want to reiterate those, we can. I think what's interesting to me about all of this is, you know, this isn't something that is fast and isn't something that's over quickly. And I know just from my own human perspective, it feels different every day, sometimes different, you know, by the hour. But I think it's feeling different for everybody as we kind of wade our way through this. It kind of feels like you're slogging through a marsh, trying to assume we're going to kind of get out of the water and have a little easier walk eventually, which we will. But this is what we've talked about as a marathon, not a sprint to the end of this. And we still have a good, 9 weeks, 2 months, like Lucy was saying. But we want people to know that they can access those resources. And we've encouraged people to reach out if they're struggling, because we're all human beings first, and colleagues second, and professionals third. And that's really the order it needs to go in to make sure everybody stays healthy through this.
I'd also just like to quickly add that, and working with the district to put together, you know, what are the requirements for staff going to do. I've been really, really impressed and so happy that the district has really thought of us as humans first and have said, we can't have you meeting with students every single day, right? You can't be on video conferences with them every single day because you guys are also parents and you're not robots. And so I just want to say a big thank you to John Holman and Mike, who have been really so thoughtful in putting together how teachers are going to spend their days, and that flexibility has been a saving grace for me, 100% a saving grace for me to able to do my job, which I take great pride in. I feel like, you know, teaching is like one of the most important things somebody could do, but also parenting. So yes, thank you, a big thank you.
Other questions for our high school team? Chris, or one of our teachers, can you talk a little bit about the high school level, how you're helping to shape that daily schedule so we're not overwhelming kids? Just kind of the practicality of it goes back to the question from the last two groups, just because there's lots of courses and lots of people and just that interaction with assignments and things. Can you characterize that a little bit for us?
Yeah, well, that actually just started today. We had the East Lake Leadership Team meeting this afternoon, and we introduced that, and we're going to come up with a few different options that we're going to have the staff vote on this week and have it in place starting next week once we have the required learning. Essentially what we're trying to do is make it so that if the teacher doesn't have to offer live learning opportunities for kids, but if they choose to do so, how do you do it in a way that doesn't cause conflicts for kids? And so, we're going to figure out a way to create a structure across the week where if a teacher is choosing to do a live learning experience, it's in these designated blocks of time so that kids don't have their math teacher and their science teacher putting demands on them at the same time. So the specifics of what that'll look like are going to be ironed out in the course of the week, but essentially it's going to be, 1 or 2 45-minute blocks of time per period across the week that are reserved for those live learning experiences, the office hours as we're calling them.
Thanks, Chris. That's the tricky part of this. You can think about online learning, but you think about college kids and you think about how many courses they're actually taking at one time and how often they go to class for those courses. And then you think about the number of courses our high school students are taking at one time, and it looks a little bit different when we think about online learning. And the ability to be self-paced or not, and this is a great foray for them into college life if they're going to be, having to be masters of their own schedules. But this was a pretty abrupt, introduction to that. So we're going to learn with our high schools as well. But I think people have that college version of online learning. Well, why can't you just flip everything over to, and then kids can go to school online? Well, those professors have had multiple months and years to shape their online learning experience, and we're new at that depth of learning online. So we'll get better and better at this, but I think that's the reference that we have. That's our framework. Is if you've ever taken a college class online, it seems pretty simple because you log in and all of your stuff is there, and you either have your remote class or you can access the video whenever you want it. And you can do that at midnight, or you can do that at noon, and it's just sitting there waiting for you, and this is a little different. Questions from anybody else before we kind of wrap up this section?
Chris, I have a question for you. Your resource center, how has that been affected, and how are they trying to adapt to this current situation?
You mean the support from the resource center to schools? Is that what you're referencing?
Well, your resource center, your special ed kids.
Gotcha.
Resource centers, yeah. Having been an observer of that for many years, I realize that's a totally different ballgame in a lot of respects.
Mark, when you asked that question earlier, I actually jotted it down. There's so many moving parts in a high school, and that was we have really highly confident transition teachers that are going to do the very best they possibly can to support those kids. But I definitely want to check in and make sure they're getting everything that they need. So I don't know if I can answer to a level of specificity that I would like right now, but I definitely agree with you that it's hugely important that we serve transition kids, resource kids, EL kids, intervention kids, and everyone else. So
I agree, Chris. Jane, it might be a great idea when we have one of these presentations in the next time around to have someone from one of the special needs classrooms, how they are coordinating and how they're trying to adapt. The same might be said of maybe having teachers or principals from one of our Title I schools.
Yeah. Yep, we can do that.
I can see that different to some degree, not great, but I'd like to see how they're handling in a different environment, if you will.
Mm-hmm. We can do a check-in. I think we'll learn more too as we go along, but I also know that's an area of frustration because we want to be able to serve our students in all of the ways that we're normally able to serve them, and doing that at a distance for many of our kids is really hard, whether multiple kinds of unique circumstances and needs that they all have, and some are just very much conducive to being right next to you and assisting with things or using adaptive equipment, and we're not able to do that the way we would like to right now. But we heard, I think, from a number of our staff that people are really reaching out and being very specific with how can we do our best to support you. We'll do a check-in.
And Mark, just one more thing that we are doing is, so we are having in the schedule that we're going to develop, we're actually going to have 8 blocks of time. And so 1 for each period, and the 8th is for special services. So if they want to connect with their EL provider or their resource room teacher or something like that, that is actually going to be one of the blocks of time that we've actually built into the schedule. So they don't have conflicts either where they're competing between getting EL support and math.
Right. Perfect. No, I just asked my son's private speech has finally figured out how to adapt remote and using her device, using the speech generating devices. There's a little touching on the first one, but it's getting smoother.
Good.
And it can be done.
Yep. Good. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Siri. I do. My question sort of is around some of the hands-on classes that we have. So I think of art and those that have to happen, or woodworking, or any of those that really require. So how are we handling those situations?
Well, yeah, I think it depends on the class. I mean, I think like an art class, we have created a system where kids are going to be able to come to school following all the social distancing protocols to pick up supplies that they need. And then, the teachers can do the modeling using technology and kids can work on it at home. I think some of them are a little more difficult, like a material science class or even a science class where, how do you replicate labs and how do you replicate experiences that require, sophisticated equipment. We're just going to have to adjust.
There's an app for
that.
that.
I can speak from the middle school portion. We're doing an experiment with our art kids where they're trying to do it with materials that they already have at home. So we're still saying, hey, what can we do with maybe flour if they have flour at home? And then we also worry about our equity piece for the kids who don't have those things at home. So we're putting together little packets here at school where they can come in and pick up stuff. But to have it all ironed out, we're not even near there. And the robotics are doing the same thing. We're trying to do it through virtual, but they're not going to be able to build that model that they've normally been able to do here and practice them in the rooms, test them, rebuild them. But they're going to be able to watch others. I call it like the laser discs of the past. Watch how others did it maybe and learn, but we haven't ironed out all that yet.
No, it is a challenge because there's a lot that's hands-on, and what you do, learn by doing, is such a key component. So And knowing that that's a time for creativity and also gives another freedom to be able to put all those pieces to work. Just wanted to make sure. The only other thing I want to say, and that's in regards to everybody, is, appreciate greatly the focus on wellness and making sure that everybody is supported, not just students, but families and teachers. I think that's a big component in being able to have a positive environment. That climate we do within the schools, and now you have to do it within an online environment and in a different outreach. So appreciate all that extra effort that's going forward. And that was the one, I would say that was sort of the thread I kept seeing between all, was really that key of building those relationships, and that's a strong point going forward. So appreciate that and all the work that's doing. So thank you.
Our teachers are creative, they're wonderful, and whether they're working in a classroom or working remotely, we know that they are the first ones who go to work to solve problems and to meet the needs of kids. So I have every faith in the world in our schools and in our leaders at our schools to do our very, very best for our kids and families. It's going to be fun to watch this get launched here in earnest over the next week, and then we'll keep learning a lot, and we'll do some debriefing about how things went and what we'll know for those easy snow days. But we have amazing people doing all of the things that we've asked them to do and more. So thank you, everybody, for being with us tonight and taking time in your early evening here to just share kind of that perspective from a school level of what's happening with our students. We appreciate it.
Can I just weigh in really quick before you say goodbye?
Sure.
I wanted to point out that operational expectation 10.1 is school culture for success, and you are all doing that, so thank you.
Good, so we don't need to do a report then, right, on that section?
Oh, no, you still have to report.
Yes, again.
Yeah. Well, it'll be easy to do some reports, some not so much. And when we talk about reports for our audience, we have our monitoring reports. And one of the things that we have talked about is what happens when conditions change like this, and how do you ensure some things that are happening in ways you can't typically monitor them? How do you still make sure what's happening? So I talked with Siri a little bit about that earlier today, and we're putting together just kind of a very simple dashboard from now to the end of the year that has some of those indicators that we've either talked about or that we can gather the data fairly easily, that gives us just that good basic picture of are the things that we're trying really working, and what are people doing to continue to contact and engage with our kids so that they're learning. And if not, then we need to know that too, so that we can pick up the pieces when we come back and know how we're going to start and begin monitoring again in that traditional sense for kids who may have fallen behind, and we'll probably have some kids who zipped ahead too. And so it will be monitoring learning again when they come back with some different variables. Mark, were you going to make a comment?
I'm just glad I don't have a chemistry student in my home to blow up the house.
Yeah, you never know how creative they might get with some of the things they find. Okay, thank you, everybody. We appreciate that. And if you're not staying for the rest of our meeting, feel free to hang up on your end and leave our meeting as we then move to the next section. So I will turn it back to you, Siri.
All right, thank you. I appreciate all that time and the efforts that are going on. So the next item on the agenda is board member comments. So does anybody have any comments they would like to make?
I'll make a quick comment.
Thank you, Director Sage.
You're welcome. This unfortunate opportunity with a global pandemic has given us the opportunity for teachers and all staff members to be creative, and that's what this takes. Is you have to be creative to find a way to effectively reach, teach, and help kids meet these academic goals to continue on. And tonight was very helpful for me so that I could understand what some of those ways are. So I appreciated having all grade levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Director Stewart, do you have a comment?
Well, I'm glad that we had the folks we had tonight. I'd really be interested in hearing too from some of the teachers or administrators that have had kids that have really stepped up to the plate for their community and started projects to provide services to the community now it's almost an adjunct to their remote learning, if you will, kind of putting those lessons into actions. I'm thinking primarily of the, or at least have my first thought with the students who have the 3D printers and they're able to make mask attachments or the attachments for various other needed things in either the healthcare setting or for that matter, just for seniors. I could think of the idea of those kids making some things that their neighbors who are over 60, such as myself, that might be very helpful to their neighbors in fashioning their own masks. I just find that kids are really reaching out in a lot of ways to help, and it'd be really great to be able to have that kind of a show of unity. And for that matter, for all those folks who are still online tonight, with the idea being that, sharing ideas from one school to another, whether it's from the STEM school or whether it's from Kamiakin or wherever, where kids are on their own kind of come up with projects, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. We've had a number of our young entrepreneurs very early on kind of hung their shingle out, whether it's for a GoFundMe or an idea that they had. And I think those are some of the success stories that we don't want to miss. So that's a good idea. And we can do that through some of our social media, but I think there's a purposeful way to do that. And then to see if there's still a need. I know we had the question about masks the other day, and I checked on that. We haven't had an actual question there, but we can certainly address that if students want to do something. And if they have some more ideas for people right in their community. I think there are needs that we don't know about. Masks has been the one that is apparent and is still needed, and we need to certainly contribute to. I think as time goes by, this is another couple months in the making, when I think it was Victor who said, art, what's needed for art supplies, and what could we have volunteers begin putting together for us for some kits. And I just saw with the mask that there are some kits. And one of our teachers who teaches in family consumer sciences had used a sewing machine to just start doing some things from kits that she had gotten. I think we could probably get kits out to people who have sewing machines and be purveyors of that. So we'll do a call for that, Mark, of the good ideas that are happening and entrepreneurs that have set up shop and that would like to maybe network with other people and see what we can help be kind of a hub for it.
Well, it's just, also, I don't lose the sense of community. We've got 3 different communities, very diverse, but also great ideas from all 3 of them.
Absolutely.
Right? That can come together and show the rest of the cities that may not have, and the parents, the residents who may not have kids in our schools, what our kids are doing for their community and for their neighbors. Yep. Because I think people miss that because it's done so quietly.
And I would just point out that some of the kids have gotten a little farther down this road to preparing a proposal for the district on using some type of equipment or perhaps packet. And some of them are finding that some of the equipment needs servicing, that it's not currently operational. So I don't know when we get updates on that type of thing. Probably not your most urgent thing on your mind right now, but just that it is on our mind at some point.
Yeah, we had this question that we kind of chatted about just in an informal circumstances. What about equipment? And so I think we would have to do that school by school. And if kids have ideas, they're in touch now with their teachers. They're in touch, hopefully, with a school administrator. We want them to bring those ideas to their classmates and their teachers. And then if they need help with that, kind of, taking that bigger at a district level, we certainly can do that. And the best place for them is to start with their teachers and work on things kind of from that level. If we have equipment that needs to be serviced, we need to know about that, and a building principal is the best person to put that work order in. And we can have social distancing and still have some things repaired if we need to. I was thinking about this the other night, because in the best of circumstances, we would say, great, have kids come on a Saturday morning and it's a maker space and we're going to open up our labs for people to come and do things, but we haven't even been able to do those things in normal circumstances. If we have this released in May a little bit more, I think that might be another opportunity for us to kind of have a layer of makerspace if people want to come in and use a sewing machine, a student wants to use a 3D printer. And then we can also have some supervision there, because as you heard me say, we're also stewards of that equipment for when we all come back and it's designed for mass use again. So we have to have that balance, but we certainly want to help equip people to do what they want to try. So we'll keep working on that, and if there's a repair that needs to be made, have them talk with their building principal.
I just want the students to know they've got our support for that sort of thing. It's easy to lose track of the fact that the whole district is supporting them in whatever they want to try and do, however we can try and make it happen. If there's barriers, we can figure out a way to overcome them.
I'm guessing we also have some budding chefs out there and some kids who are doing their own cooking shows as they see newscasters and Food Network people who no longer need an entire crew in front of them to produce their show. I think we have kids who probably have some sophisticated equipment or some unsophisticated equipment who've figured that out too. And I would love to see the showcase of those things through our district. I think that'd be fun.
They can borrow my kitchen anytime.
All right. Good to know. All right, Siri, back to you.
Can I, Eric here, can I chime in with a question?
Absolutely. Go, Eric.
Thanks. Dr. Statham, I'm wondering, so we've been receiving now essentially almost weekly updates from the superintendent's report, and we have these meetings. Are you anticipating that this will continue for each meeting, that we will receive, there will be well, I'm just curious, what level of presentation and update are you anticipating giving the board at these meetings?
Well, I think, and this is my opinion, our board chair can correct me, but I think these meetings that we've had here in April were ones that we put in place to really kind of get up to speed with what does this look like, what are we doing, what is this going to look like as we get moving. We also have to get back to the regular business of the board here as we go into budget season and preparation for next year. And so I think we need to have a blend. We're going to plan to have just our regularly scheduled board meetings in May, and those are already filling up. Even our April 20th board meeting is filling up. So I think during my superintendent's report, which is where these have been positioned, it would still be good to do an update, but certainly probably don't have the time to do it as extensively as we did. So I guess I would say if a board member has a particular interest, or if we feel like there's something that maybe we haven't had an update on recently, that we could plug that in there. It just probably wouldn't be to the length that these have been. That would be my personal opinion.
I think they serve a very valuable purpose too in letting the parents know that they're limited maybe to their own student or whatever, and they're hearing things that, gee, so-and-so is doing that at this district and that district. I think it's important for the parents to know what all has been going on, and that it hasn't been a vacuum here, and God knows it hasn't been, but that's a perception that can happen when you don't see what's going on behind the curtain. Mm-hmm. And I think the more that parents know that, the way that teachers are really busting their tails to get things done beyond what they normally would, I think it's very important for the parents of the district to know that.
Yeah, and they're going to start interacting with their teachers more now as we ramp up, so I think they'll have a better sense of that as they're doing now the real version. I think we also may hear more from parents who weren't necessarily wanting more. So, we're going to probably hear a range of things. But back to your question, Eric, that would be what I would say is we still need to have some measure of update, but probably not to this level. And then we need to also start getting some other things on our regular board agenda.
So if I may answer that just a little bit as well to add on to that, is part of that was, and Dr. Saban mentioned it, was dealing with the sort of how do we interim monitor this process going forward at a bigger level. So having an idea as to what are some of the key things we should pay attention to between now and the end of June in regards to the online learning. So more from a much broader picture than not so many specifics. So it would be that dashboard concept and being able to look through that more. And then if there were specific things to go into that. But we do have all the additional work coming forward. So the monitoring reports will start coming through and all the operational expectations in the next few months. So we'll start bringing those forward. And that will have a different component with the online learning piece as well. And what's happening.
I would just say the other tricky thing I think is going to be, we know in May we'll still probably be remote meetings. But some of the things coming at us are not going to be conducive to, 4-hour virtual meetings. And so I think we also may need to think about separating a few things maybe need to go into a separate night study session apart from the regular board meeting, because we're not going to be able to do it all in one night. Especially like with budget and just, some time that we need to spend on some of those things. I don't think we're going to be able to hook a study session to a regular board meeting like we normally would, as long as we're online. Not that they weren't super fun in person to go, 5 and 6 hour meetings, but we're not going to be able to handle that in this setting.
So we'll be looking at all those pieces of how to schedule that in so that all the work that needs to be done in order to operate the district, as well as the additional pieces of keeping up with what's going on.
Okay.
Is there something you would like to see, Director Lynn Liberty? Okay, just to confirm it. All right, any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I will just like to let people know we do have an upcoming board meeting that'll be held remotely. Will be held on April 20th, starting at 5 p.m. again, following the same things. As well, from here, the board will now actually convene into executive session for 60 minutes, and we actually have two purposes for that exec session. One will be to discuss potential litigation, and the other is to discuss qualifications of an applicant for public employment. We will then, the board will convene into an executive session at 7 p.m. And when we reconvene to this meeting, there will be no board action taken. So with that, we will now convene to executive session.